Good morning and welcome back to Trauma Time. Today I'm going to be talking about my foster home story. So this story took place when I was only 3 years old, and I'm going to start from the way beginning. So my mom had gotten a restraining order against my father. I'm not going to get into that story only because it's a lot. So at this point I was living with my mother and my other brother, not the one I spoke about in the last video. I was 3, so at this point he was 7 years old. And my brother was born with a lot of health issues and he almost didn't make it. So what happened was, on this day, my brother's appendix had ruptured and he was rushed to the emergency room and the doctors didn't think that he was going to make it. So my mom had called her lawyer and he said that the judge gave him the approval for my father to come to the hospital because my brother wasn't going to make it. Thankfully, my brother made it out okay, but there was another issue, like for part 2. Welcome back to Trauma Time, Part 2. So the issue was, my mom's lawyer had lied to her. He didn't actually get approval from the judge. He just said that he did. So my mom technically broke her restraining order that she had in place against my father. So we get out of the hospital about a week later. My brother is out of surgery. He's doing good. We pull into our driveway, and our house was surrounded by cops. I remember an old lady ripping me out of my car seat from my mom's car, and a man took my brother out of the car, and we were put into the back of a police car. And I just remember my mom crying and screaming, "My babies. You can't take my babies." My brother and I are screaming and crying. We don't know what's happening. The next thing I know, we're driving away, and they bring us to this house with this lady and this guy, and they tell us this is our new home. It gets worse, like for part 3. Welcome back to Trauma Time, Part 3. So we go into this house. They say you can call me mom and dad, which that didn't sit right with me or my brother. They take us upstairs. When you walk up the stairs, there was a big room full of bunk beds, and they told my brother that's where he would be staying, and it was full of boys. They take me to the room next door, and it was just me. And there was another teenage girl down the hall, but she was older, so I was the only little girl there. My brother easily made friends with the other boys, and he got along pretty well with them. He got along very well with the father, but that's not how I remember it for me. I felt alone. There was one little boy who I didn't get along with, but that's the only person I had contact with, really. Until one day I caught him looking at me getting changed, and I pushed him down a flight of stairs. I was very well misbehaved, like for part 4. Welcome back to Trauma Time, Part 4. So as I said, I pushed this boy down the stairs, which earned me my own special seat in the house, the timeout seat. So I had a little wooden chair that I would have to sit in most of the day because I was always being bad. And this little boy would always taunt me, and the one day I had enough. So me, being the bad child that I was, picked the chair up and broke it over his head. Obviously, I got in trouble for doing that. And my punishments from then forward were either a freezing cold shower or a burning hot shower. You know, since I broke my timeout chair. And this was all done by the foster mom. The dad was a cop and was rarely ever there, only at nighttime. And he would take the boys downstairs and play pool and play games with them. Me being the bad kid that I was, I had to go to bed early. Like for part. Welcome back to Trauma Time, Part 5. So after all that greatness, my brother and I were there for about a year. I did celebrate my 4th birthday in the home. I did have visitation with my mom, and I was told I had visitation with my dad. I do not personally remember that. I was put into ballet classes while I was in the foster home. But we were released back to our mother shortly after my 4th birthday. While we were in there, our grandma, my mom's mom, had passed, so that delayed us a little bit longer because my mom had to go to Florida for my grandma's service. But right after that, we moved in with my mom, and everything was going good until, you know, the last story. We finally got to start seeing our dad again, and I had just found out that I had a baby sister from my wonderful stepmom. But I did not get to meet her until years later, and that's for another time.
When my boyfriend walks in and sees all these octopuses, he knows it's going down.
I had a very traumatic childhood, so I'm going to start a series called Storytime. This is a story about the first time I got drunk. I was 5 years old, and my mom had these galas for work where they would dress up and she would make Jello shots. And me and my brothers, we wanted them because it's Jello. So she would make a plain batch for us and then the vodka batch for her. My 16-year-old brother decided he was going to switch the trays. So my mom took the plain Jello and took it to her work function, and my brother kept the trays with vodka in the fridge because he wanted to have some friends over and have a party. He wasn't watching me like he was supposed to, and I got in the fridge and ate all of the Jello shots. When he realized I ate all of them, he had a panic attack because I was 5 and I was drunk. He tried to get me to walk in a straight line. I hit the wall and I fell backwards, like for part 2. Welcome back to Storytime, part 2. So my brother had me walk in a straight line, I hit the wall, fell backwards, and I was out cold. My brother called my mom, freaking out, telling her what happened, and then he continued to shove his fingers down my throat to help me puke out all the alcohol. My mom is rushing home from her work party that she was at, and comes home to me covered in vomit and my brother's hand in my throat trying to get all of it out so that I wouldn't have to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped from alcohol poisoning at the age of 5. And my mom had just got us back from a foster home, so that would not go very good for her and I would be taken away again. So after they get me content and done puking, my mom kicks my brother out of the house at age of 16, and that's when he moved out and never came back because he was not welcome back. More to come. Hey, what time is it? It's trauma time. Good morning, guys. Today I'm going to talk about the time I had a stalker. We're going to fast forward, and this is when I was in high school. It was my sophomore year, and my friend had called me the one day. She had met this guy on Facebook, and they were dating. And she wanted to go spend the weekend with him, so she asked if I could cover for her and say she was staying at my house. So, of course, like a good friend, I did. And then she asked me if I could go meet her boyfriend to get gas money because I was going to bring her to meet him somewhere the next day. So, of course, I'm going to take the gas money. I go to meet him at this gas station, and she said he's 19 and he's a country boy, so that's kind of what I was looking for. So I'm sitting there waiting for this guy to show up, and all of a sudden an older man comes and knocks on my window. This guy looked 35, and we were 16. After I get the gas money, I call my friend and tell her, this guy's not 19. Part 2. I'm on the phone with my friend telling her I don't feel comfortable doing this because this man looks 35. And she's like, no, it's okay, I've met him before. I know he's 19, I met his family, I met everyone. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just overthinking this. So I go get her from her house the next day to, come to my house. I drive her to meet him at a playground. She gets out of the car, I say goodbye, and that I'll pick her up on Sunday so that it looks like I'm the one dropping her off at her house. And I just had this really weird feeling in my stomach. I knew something was wrong. I keep texting her the whole time, and then out of nowhere I get a text saying he's not going to let me go. I start freaking out because I feel like this is my fault, even though I tried to tell her. He took her and drove from New York to North Carolina, when he told her he only lived a few towns over. So he kidnapped her, and he was not going to let her leave. I find this guy's Facebook, and I start messaging him. Like for part 3. Part 3. So I'm texting this guy telling him he needs to let her go, because I'm going to call the police and tell her parents. And then he starts blaming me, saying she broke up with me because of you. She had told him that if he didn't let her go home, that she was going to break up with him. And this guy was a psycho. So thankfully that worked. But then he started putting the blame on me, saying that I was the reason she was about to break up with him. At this point, I had already called her parents and told them everything that was going on. Him thinking she was going to break up with him if he didn't take her home, he brought her home. He dropped her off at the end of the road and she went to her house, and there was cops there waiting for her. Well, waiting for him. But they didn't get him because he dropped her off at the end of the road. And he got out of there. So she's at home and she's safe, but he continues to text her. She blocks him on everything. I block him on everything. And he keeps making other Facebooks to talk to us. I was getting threats. Like for part 4. Part 4. This guy continues to message me off of random accounts, threatening me, and after a little while it stopped. Until one day I was FaceTiming my friends, and I got a text that said, "I see you." So I'm like, guys, stop messing with me. And they didn't know what I was talking about. And then I hear a knock on my window. My friends who I was on FaceTime with also heard the knock. I look out the window and there's no one there. I start freaking out. I tell my brother. He goes outside, and it was wintertime. So there was footprints leading to my window. And in my backyard, there's a field, and the footprints went right through the field. We call the cops. They come over. They go search, and they couldn't find him. So at this point, I don't know if it's him or if it's just someone messing with me. But apparently, they know this guy's real name and his license plate number. And it was detected at a toll coming into New York that night. So that night, I slept with a knife next to my bed and cops outside of my house. It gets better, like for part 5. It's part 5. So it's the next day. I have school. I go through the whole school day scared because of what just happened the night before. Finally, the day came to an end, and I went out to my car. I get in, and I start going, and my car's making a really weird noise. I look, and everyone in the parking lot is staring at me, but I just ignore it, and I keep going. I pull out of the school, I start going down the road, and then my car just starts making this really loud noise. And I pull over, and my tire was flat. I call my dad to come help me. My dad gets there and says, "Your tire was slashed. There was an L shape in the tire from someone stabbing it, pulling it across, and ripping the knife out." So I instantly call my mom, tell her what happened, and we go back to the school to get the cameras. We see his truck pull up, right next to my car. And in the video, you could see a man get out, squat next to my car, get in his truck, and leave. Like for part 6. Part 6. We call the cops, let them know what just happened, and they tell us that his truck hasn't left New York yet. So he's still there, even after slashing my tire. But they tell us the second he goes to a toll to try to leave, the cops will be waiting there for him. So I felt a lot safer. But unfortunately, he never left. I'm not even sure if he had family that he went and stayed with in New York, but he did not leave. A few months later, it was prom, and I went to prom with his ex-girlfriend and our other friend, and we were both on edge because we were afraid that he was going to show up. We're at prom, we're having a good time, and then we went to the bathroom. I went out early because I wanted to go out and dance, and as soon as I walk out of the bathroom, I see him standing there. He was working for the place where we had the prom as a bodyguard. I instantly run into the bathroom and call 911, and they got his ass. It's your daily dose of trauma time. In today's video, I'm going to give you a little bit of background knowledge. When I was little, my dad used to take me to go racing because he was into motocross racing, and he got me my own little four-wheeler. So I was pretty knowledgeable from a young age on how to ride and race. Also, just letting you know, I've lived with my mom my whole life just to not confuse anybody. So I was at my mom's house, and she was dating this guy who eventually became my stepfather. And we were in the back of the house, and they had a huge mud pit. So me and my step-siblings, we would go mudding on the four-wheeler. So it was just a normal day. We were mudding until a pebble got stuck in the throttle. So when that happens, the four-wheeler is going, and you cannot stop it. The brakes will not work. It is full throttle. You're gone. At this point, I was only 8 years old, and my stepsister was 3, so she was still in diapers. Like for part 2. Part 2. So here we are going full throttle. I have a 3-year-old in my lap who's only wearing a diaper. We didn't have helmets on. She literally only had a diaper on. Me having the knowledge that I did, I decided to just keep going straight because it was a field, so I knew that nothing bad could really happen. My mom, my stepdad, everybody's chasing the four-wheeler, trying to catch up to us, trying to hit the kill switch because there's a button that you can shut the four-wheeler off, and it was not working. At this point, I start freaking out because I'm getting closer to houses and trees. We were only going about 50 miles an hour, but when you can't stop it, that's kind of scary. And you turn around and just see people chasing you and they can't catch you, so you feel like you're going a lot faster. So I just keep going straight because I know if I turn the wheel, we're flipping. So we're going, in front of me there's a tree, to the left there's a pond, to the right there's a bush. And I know that the 3-year-old in my lap will die if I hit that tree. So I throw her in the bush, and I hit the tree. Like for part 3. Hey, part 3. So as I was saying, I hit the tree. I flew backwards, and the four-wheeler flew backwards with me and was 2 inches from hitting me right in the head. Thankfully, it bounced and it flew into the pond. You know, the one I said was to my left? And it was still running. So it almost looked like that pond had a fountain, because the wheels were just kicking up water. As soon as I hit the tree, I blacked out. So I didn't even know that the four-wheeler was 2 inches from taking off my head. My mom and everyone who was running to catch us finally get there. They get my sister out of the bush. They make sure I'm okay. And the four-wheeler, they didn't just go grab it out because they couldn't. They just let it run until it flooded itself. My stepdad thanks me for saving his daughter's life because she would have died. Unfortunately, I killed the four-wheeler, but at least I didn't kill her. And now I cannot ride four-wheelers. If a pebble can do that much damage...